Hi everybody, and we are live and on the air, and today is Wednesday, October 9th, and we have two Game 5s of the NLDS playing today. We have the Braves playing at 5 o'clock against the Cardinals at SunTrust Park, and at 8:30 tonight we have the Nationals versus Dodgers from Dodger Stadium. So we'll make two videos today. Our first video will be shorter than the second one. We'll basically talk about Game 4 of last night's game between the Astros and the Rays. And if you're a Rays fan, there's good news. The Rays are going back to Houston for Game 5 of the ALDS. That'll be tomorrow night at on FS1 about 7 o'clock. Kenny Albert, Joe Girardi, and AJ Pierzynski. JP Morosi will be on the call. And later today, for the NLDS, will be Brian Anderson. And, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. Brian Anderson, Ron Darling, Lauren Jahadi for the LDS, and tonight later on tonight it will be Ernie Johnson calling the Dodgers Nationals. Ernie Johnson, Jeff Francoeur, and Alex Chappell. Those will be your announcers for tonight, in case anyone's wondering. So back to Game 4. So really, it was kind of interesting going into the game. Was kind of the storyline. Opener, which what the Rays have done, they invented basically last year when they were short on starting pitching. That's what they did last night against old school. Short rest. So the Astros put Verlander on short rest, which short rest right now is becoming less and less common. It might happen occasionally in the ALDS, but really in the National League Championship Series and World Series, I think it is getting less and less common. I mean, the Dodgers for years with Mattingly, and even I think for the first year of Dave Roberts, I think they used Clayton Kershaw on short rest many times over the years, especially early on. I think a famous example was the 2009 Yankees, most recent, won the World Series using short rest. And I have to kind of look back and look at other teams as examples, but CC was a master at short rest that October. But right now, the Astros decided to use short rest with Verlander. Since here was the thing, yes, they had a 2-1 lead. Yes, they're in good shape to win to win the series. So I was thinking, because I didn't know where they're starting after yesterday, talking on the air Monday if they would have lost. I mean, it could have been, it was really unknown. And they went with Verlander since they wanted to get the series over with. And they had the advantage, since now we have Gerrit Cole going back to Houston tomorrow night. He'll be pitching. So again, old school versus new school. And short rest, I think, is becoming rare and rarer. Yes, Keuchel started on short rest as well. I think in the division series, it might be a little bit more common. Now it might happen every once in a while. The Indians obviously famously used short rest with Corey Kluber as he started in games 1, 4, and 7 of the World Series that year against the Cubs, 2016. So did it work? It did not work for the Astros. So Diego Castillo started last night, and just kind of breaking down the game for everyone. So we knew it was going to be a bullpen game, so the question is, how many innings would Diego Castillo actually go? Well, Springer led off the game with a single, which for Springer, I think he was 0 for 13 going into that at-bat, so obviously maybe that would be a momentum jump start that the Astros needed. Didn't work out, struck out the side, which was a very powerful lineup. Brantley, Altuve, Bregman, if you have those 4 hitters, all of them are... So you think about it. That was your lineup. Think about it. Think about what they just struck out. And then, second batter of the game, Tommy Pham. Verlander, I think, throws a changeup. Tommy Pham hits a home run. Second batter of the game. Just like that, it's 1-0 Rays. And if the Astros had any momentum going in the first inning, the momentum basically went straight to the Rays. And then later on, followed, so Choi walks. Avisail Garcia, I think he had 4 hits last night. He's been really good this series. He hit a single. So just like that, I was starting to think right away, was Verlander affected by short rest? Now, the reason why they did this is they just want to get this series over with, since A, if they lost, they knew they had Gerrit Cole back in Houston, and we know how dominant he was in Game 2. So the question was, what was going on? What was going on there? Well, I think he was. He just didn't have anything tonight. He just didn't have anything. He thought, oh, we know he's prone to the home run ball. I had no problem and give a home run. I mean, that's what Scherzer did. on, and we'll get much more into depth in the next episode. But that's what Scherzer did back in game last night, or 2 nights ago now, against Justin Turner, right? So again, so they thought, okay, we'll recover from that. That was not the case. And then Darno hits a single, and Wendell hits an RBI double that gives it. So it's 3-0, just like that. Could have been 4-0. In the first inning, they sent 8 hitters to the plate. I think Verlander had thrown about 32 pitches at that point in time. So it was clear right then and there he didn't have it, especially not in the first inning. If he was going to make anything of his start, he really had to be basically perfect the rest of the way. He just didn't have it. You know, the Rays were just, they seemed like they could do nothing on offense in game one or game 2. Well, that was not the case. They did. In game 3, they came back and scored 10 runs, including 8 off Greinke. They hit a lot of home. They used the long ball, and once again, they have a they sent. So their momentum really continued going back to Tampa. Since again, I went on the air on Monday, 2 days ago, about 48 hours ago, to talk about what the Rays need to do to change. And whatever they were doing, it seemed like the storyline of the series just before this is, oh, okay, you have Glasnow and Snell. They're obviously, you don't know how deep they're going to pitch. They're not their full selves right now. And they come in and and it seems like they gave up a home run, and that was basically it for them. So were they tiring out? Who knows? But that seems to be the storyline. Dominant starting pitching, and the Rays not having maybe enough starting pitching, and the Astros just getting timely hits and winning a game that matters. So that's really what happened. So again, and it was clear Verlander just didn't have it. I mean, by the end of the second inning, he had 57 pitches. So again, he didn't allow any runs. He had to grind through the second inning. And then he gave up a leadoff double to Brandon Lowe in the third inning. Could have been even worse. And when the Astros had the opportunity to get back in the game, Altuve led off, I think it was the 4th with a single. And he was trying to score from first on an Alvarez double. They're being aggressive. I think there was 1 out. So you could have first and third and 1 out, just try to chip away, get a run here, get a run there. They did not. They were aggressive. They sent him. And you couldn't have had an even more perfect relay throw. I mean, if any of your listeners, A, watched the game, or B, saw any highlights of it, basically went off the wall, Kiermaier, bullet arm, threw it basically from the warning track all the way to basically to the infield, where Adames caught it and threw a strike to home plate. The ball never touched the ground at all on the relay throw, just 2 strikes to get a speedy Altuve. So at that point in time, if the Astros had any momentum, it basically crashed right there, and then they're out of the inning. And then Willie Adames, who has been really good this series, a 9-hitter, kind of a rookie, playing, I think this is his first official full year in the majors. He's hit home runs in back-to-back games, hit home run off Verlander, and that was really it for him. And Verlander ended up lasting only 3 2/3 innings. He was not anywhere close to his best. He just wasn't. You know, you might have those starts like that where you just don't have it. Was he tired? Was he fatigued? I don't know. It was kind of funny. I was looking up all of his postseason game logs over the years, and surprisingly, he never started on short rest in the playoffs. Never started on 3 days rest in the playoffs. So I think he's doing something he had never done before. So now all of a sudden, instead of getting out of there and having him on regular rest for potentially game 2 of the ALCS, now if they win, you're not going to push them to game 1, since you know you have that game 5, and we can talk about that really later. I mean, there's a bunch of scenarios, so I don't want to try to think of any scenarios that probably the Astros aren't worried about right now. They'll worry about that if they win game 5. So anyways, the Rays use the opener. So then it's kind of funny. You have Diego Castillo throwing 100 miles per hour, throwing that 88 mile per hour slider in the dirt, and it basically seems unhittable. So then you bring in Ryan Yarbrough, who has been a starter at times. Usually pitches gives him 5 or 6, usually decent innings. Throws about 88 to 90. Kind of has a really slow curve. Throws change-ups, things like that. Really slows down. So obviously it's a huge adjustment for the Astros they had to make with Yarbrough, and he basically gave them, I think it was 2 innings. Then you have Nick Anderson, who I guess you could say is a setup man at times. He comes in, he gives them 2. Kind of the fastball, mid to upper 90s fastball, and then the mid 80s hammer curveball. That's hard to hit. And then Gerrit Cole, a lefty. So they give you basically they basically give you a bridge. Since Castillo went inning in 2/3, they basically covered the second, basically the rest of the second, third and fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and even into the eighth, and then it came time for Emilio Pagan, who was their closer. And the interesting thing that happened, really at the end of the game, so Emilio Pagan comes in, doesn't finish the 9th. Blake Snell comes in, who pitched on Saturday, so he's on 2 days rest. He's in the bullpen. I think he's designed to get the lefties out. He comes in and gets a strikeout and a ground out, and it ended up being 4-1 Rays. So again, the Rays had opportunities to break it open. Maybe they didn't do it. Maybe they didn't win by as much as they did, but they'll take it. And the Astros, who in the later innings they had opportunities to get back in the game. You know, they had runners on. They could have done what maybe the Royals did to them 3 years ago. Chipping away, finding a way to come back, or maybe similar to what the Cardinals did in Game 1 against the Braves, where you find a way to come back, or whatever, and they didn't do that. So now all of a sudden, the series is tied, and what I thought about Blake Snell, I thought that was a good call. Maybe you needed him to get the last 2 outs. Didn't throw a terrible amount of pitches, came into relief for the first time. And Game 5 of this series will be Gerrit Cole versus Tyler Glasnow. So Glasnow pitched on Friday. Game 1, he will be on 5 days rest, so more than enough rest. And maybe potentially it's Blake Snell had kind of that quick bullpen session. Do you possibly use Blake Snell as well in that game? Obviously the bullpen's gonna have a day to rest as well. So whether that is that combination of what they use throughout the series. So again, we're down to the ultimate test. This Rays team, I thought had no shot at being the Astros after Game 2. I thought they have Greinke. They just need to finish today. They can finish today, and maybe when Altuve hit that home run in Game 1, or Game 3, I'm sorry. Maybe that was maybe you thought that's the series right there. It was not the series. So now all of a sudden, it's Gerrit Cole at 15 strikeouts. Was basically unhittable against the Rays in Game 2. And now all of a sudden, they go back to Houston. They go back to Tampa, and their offense just takes off. And they jump all over Verlander. So again, this is Game 5. The Astros have won 2 games in a row. The Rays have won 2 games in a row. And this is a Gerrit Cole in full rest. So if the Astros follow what they did in Houston, dominant starting pitching, timely hitting, they're going to win. They're going to win. And we know Gerrit Cole is ready to go. This question, you can do 2 things. 2 things could happen. 1, Cole does exactly what happened in Game 1. It's just a repeat and encore. Or 2, the Rays make adjustments to figure out what's going on. Oh, this is where he's throwing the fastball. Okay. Oh, this is what we saw on the slider. Try to take on sliders or curveballs or whatever. I'm just making things up. This is what they could be going through. So the question is, can the Rays make adjustments to what happened in Game 3? Does Cole have to work more? Are there any innings like with Verlander where the Rays just completely make him work? And again, they're sort of like the Nationals are. especially when they have Scherzer and Strasburg, where they're basically going all starting pitching from there, and they need starting pitching to get things done. They need the starter to go at least 7 innings, if not more. And then they have their trusted bullpen pieces, which for the Astros, I think it's probably maybe Harris and Ozuna. Again, the Astros, I think, have a good bullpen, not a great Tampa Bay-like bullpen. So if the Rays, and they can do that, pull off an upset, then again, their idea of the opener has worked significantly for them. They won 90 games last year, and they won 96 this year. And they've taken the Astros to Game 5. So this is basically, they're in the same scenario they were against Oakland. I mean, they beat Oakland last week. That's an elimination game against Oakland. And their formula of that game was kind of similar to what it was. It was Morton. They relied on Morton to start the game for them. 5 innings of starting pitching. The rest is the bullpen. They hit home runs. Again, they're doing when they win games in October. 2 of them they have Charlie Morton, who gives them 5 good innings. I think could give them more if he, it seems like he's getting into trouble a lot this playoff. Is having a hard time figuring it out early on, and then should have said this at the end of the show. May not be 100% with the voice today, but I'm still trying to get through. I really enjoy doing this. I'm probably 90-95% right now. So, anyways, Morton, I'm having trouble having trouble getting through, right? So then, right, and then makes adjustments later on and seems to get through kind of the 3rd, 4th, 5th inning, right? Well, that worked, and then hitting home runs. I think they had 4 home runs, I think 3, and then 2. I think they've hit a lot of home runs in games that they've won. In this game, now granted, Gerrit Cole, who just struck you out 15 times, who you could basically do nothing against in Game 2, is starting, and Gerrit Cole is not Sean Manaea. But still, if you can somehow connect on a home run or 2, maybe Glasnow has it this time. Who knows how far he's going to go? I think it would be the same thing. 3, maybe 4 innings, similar to what it was in game number 1. And again, in this game, you can't try to guess when he's tired or can't know and find out, he's tired. I really think you have to watch him very closely as you get into the 3rd or 4th inning. So what was his pitch count? I think between 75 and 80, so I don't know how far you let him go. But obviously, you have your bullpen ready to go. So again, this is an elimination game. The Rays are 3-0 in elimination games in this playoffs. And if they can pull off the upset and beat a 100-win Astros team, 107-win Astros team, who we say is one of the greatest teams that maybe baseball has ever seen. If you pull that off, I could think they could beat the Yankees. Of course they could. If you can beat the Astros, you can beat anybody. And again, so does their method work? Yes, it has worked to an extent in the regular season. Now we want to see how much playoff success it has. And it has shown that it has worked some. And we had the Brewers last year, who were very bullpen dependent, go to Game 7. Sure, the Royals won the World Series relying on the bullpen. Not to the extent of what the Rays are, or even what the Brewers were, but to an extent. They're following that bullpen model. And if the Rays win tomorrow night, this will be one of the greatest upsets in postseason history, especially coming back from being down 2-0. This kind of reminds me of that Indians-Yankees series from a couple of years ago, where the Yankees were kind of underdogs. They're just getting into form. And the Indians were one of the best, just lost in the World Series. They're looking for redemption. They had a 2-0 lead. And it appeared the series was over. Went back to the home ballpark. Energy completely changes. It's electric. And then you go back to their place for Game 5. So this kind of reminds me of that series. And it'll be interesting to see if that upset is pulled off. I think it would be exactly like that. So we'll see. We'll see. And again, I'm going to say this before I go. The pressure is on the Astros, not the Rays. Since the Astros had a 2-0 lead, and you hear all the hype. They won 107 games. Everyone is picking them to win the World Series. I mean, I went through Sports Illustrated, MLB.com, ESPN, a lot of major outlets, CBS Sports, whatever. Very high percentage of people said Astros over Dodgers. And as of right now, all that's on the line. All that's on the line. We might have, there's just a possibility of the World Series being Nationals-Rays, the underdog World Series, than it is of being Astros, Dodgers, what everyone's been talking about and what I've thought would be some spring training. So it's all on the line right now. And the Astros have a tremendous amount of pressure. They have to win this Game 5. Or otherwise, everything that they work for, 107 wins, doesn't mean anything if they lose the game. So this is the Astros game to lose. This is the Astros game to lose. So it's on Houston. Tampa Bay can just do what they said. Hey, do exactly what they did in games 3 and 4. Do it again. I mean, it's possible they can. So I'm going to ask, what's more likely to happen? Games 3 and 4 or Game 2, Gerrit Cole? I'm going to say Gerrit Cole is very good. Doesn't quite dominate like he did. He's not going to get 15 strikeouts, I don't think. And it's going to be, and the Astros win Game 5. That's going to be my pick. So, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. I don't know whether it'll go on the air either tomorrow. Maybe we'll talk about the Game 5s. Or whether it'll go on the air on Friday to potential preview the LCS series. I don't know yet. So we'll play it by ear, but I'm looking forward to watching 3 Game 5s upcoming. So thank you for listening, and now let's talk about the National League side of things. We'll be right back in a minute.